Good morning, PSWs and friends across Ontario and Canada. We are back with PSW Podcast. We had a bit of a little break there due to trips to Ottawa for Ian and myself, but we are back this time with a heavy hitter PSW Podcast. My name is Miranda Romanovich. I'm the CEO of the Ontario PSW Association, and I am joined today by HSCPOA, the new regulatory body for personal support workers in the province of Ontario. And today I am not just joined by Trevor, who you guys all know, Trevor Lee, the CEO, but we are joined with Daniël Jansen, who is the complaints manager, because let's just say it like it is, guys. A lot of questions, a lot of falsehoods around how this is actually going to work for PSWs. And so, guys, we thought we'd bring them right to you guys today to answer these questions live here on PSW Podcast and how this whole complaints process and our licenses, etc., is going to work. So, Trevor, I'm going to give it over to you to just give an overview again about HSCPOA. Take it
Great.
away.
Thanks so much, Miranda. And to all who are watching either on TikTok or on Facebook, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come and to learn and to have hopefully an open mind to what we're going to be sharing with you for clarifications of some of the points that I know we've been receiving, and Miranda's been sharing through the points that she's been getting from her membership through to us. Let me first start by saying thank you to each of you for the work you do each and every day to support our healthcare system. Ontario's healthcare system is very, very reliant on the good work that each of you do as PSWs in your various settings around the province each and every day. And one of the primary focuses, line of sight for the ministry, line of sight for us as HSCPOA, is we are very mindful and sensitive to any disruptions that our existence may cause in that fabric of the healthcare system. So let's just dispel that, we're here to try and reduce the amount of PSWs or to in some way have a design in our mechanism that is going to cause exits of PSWs. That isn't our intentions. Our intentions are really to support the public protection, which is our mandate, and to work collaboratively with PSWs on matters that arise. But I'm really pleased to have Daniël with me today to talk about the actual design application of what is in the complaints process to help make sure that we can maybe define in a bit more detail and to dispel some of the impressions that are out there about what happens when a complaint comes in. And let me first start by saying that we expect most of the individuals that are going to be registrants within HSCPOA are, because that's what you're doing every day, you're going to be delivering quality, competent, and ethical care. And the complaint aspect is not necessarily the front of every single day that you start your valued work. It's really going to be when an instance arises and we have a complaint that comes in and we look at it and we address it in the meaningful way that Daniel's going to be describing. So thank you for the opportunity to just lay that as a bit of a foundation for our discussion this morning, and very pleased to have this chance to have a dialogue with you and with your PSW membership.
Well, we always appreciate it because we're all about transparency, as you guys are as well, and breaking down those myths and those falsehoods that are out there. Because, I mean, no PSW has the time or should be panicking about anything in relation to their livelihoods working in Ontario healthcare. So, Daniël, I'm going to put you right on the spot. We're going
Okay,
to make this happen
I'm
right
ready.
away. All right. So the first question is, could HSCPOA provide clarification regarding the safeguards and due process protections available to personal support workers if concerns arise that could impact their registration status, including suspension, etc.?
Perfect. Okay, happy to address that as best I can. So kind of walk through the process that HSCPOA has in place. And I know as well, we're very much aware of the comparisons out there to the College of Nurses and other health regulatory colleges. So I will touch on that as well, just to clear up some of the misconceptions around that. So the decision making around complaints is delegated to HSCPOA's CEO and the HSCPOA Act versus complaints or ICRC screening committees, which many of you may be aware of at the RHPA colleges. But the overarching principles are very similar. So the Ministry of Health chose not to include HSCPOA under the RHPA, like those health regulatory colleges and the other 28 regulated health professions that there are at the moment. And they've created a separate and distinct legislation and regulations that govern how we operate. There's many ways similar, but also different to the RHPA colleges. So HSCPOA is an oversight authority, and a primary objective is public protection, similar to those colleges, and other non-health regulated professionals entities as well, such as RICO, the Real Estate Council, Early Childhood Educators. All those individuals are also subject to complaints. So it's not something that's distinct and unique to the health professions. So the CEO and HSCPOA staff are bound by the requirements in the HSCPOA Act and the complaints regulation regarding the complaints process. So everything about the complaints process we have comes from the Act and the regulations. So Trevor's already mentioned this, but we do recognize that there is apprehension from PSWs about the complaints process. It's scary, it's unknown. We acknowledge that 100%. But as Trevor's mentioned, we anticipate that the vast majority of registrants will never be subject to a complaint. So for those that will be, I'm just going to walk you through some of the high-level steps of our complaints process. So within 14 days of receipt of a complaint, the registrant, the PSW, receives an exact copy of the complaint with a cover letter outlining what the exact concerns are, and a fact sheet that also outlines the steps of the process. Some very clear, simple, easy to understand language. And both parties, including the registrant, so the complainant, that's the person who submitted the complaint, and the registrant are very actively involved in the entire process. So both can submit letters, emails, photographs, whatever they wish to provide to HSCPOA, and that will be considered by the CEO. Registrants have 30 days to provide a response to the complaint. And what's very critical to understand, I'm going to stress this, is that no decisions are made about that complaint until we receive the registrant's response. So there will never be a situation where we receive a complaint and the registrant doesn't know about it. The registrant will also always have the last opportunity to provide submissions to any new information. And when the CEO reviews the entire case file, so the complaint, the registrant's response, the letters, etc., he uses a comprehensive risk-based framework that is similar to those ICRC complaint screening committees that I referenced earlier. So he'll consider aggravating, mitigating factors such as the PSWs or the registrant's insight, the accountability, their prior history if they have any, their cooperation with HSCPOA, the number of incidents, et cetera, et cetera. So with regards to the outcomes, HSCPOA's focus will always be remediation whenever appropriate. So it could be something like a letter of advice, reviewing a certain specific section of the Code of Ethics. It could be an educational workshop. It could be meeting with a PSW expert from HSCPOA's PSW Advisory Committee, writing a reflective paper, or taking a brief course or workshop to brush up on any skills. And I've lined up many free or low-cost courses and seminars for those reasons. And for the vast majority of complaints, registrants will still be able to continue to provide the health and supportive care services that they're used to without any restrictions while the issue is investigated and even after there is an outcome, including for situations where HSCPOA CEO issues advice or directs further education. So there'll be no restrictions on the registrant's ability to provide health and supportive care services. But with that said, it is important to note that for serious concerns like abuse, so physical abuse, verbal, sexual abuse, or complaints where there are numerous incidents, after HSCPOA has conducted an investigation and after the registrant has provided a response and participated in the process, a referral to discipline committee is an option. And that is something that HSCPOA's CEO does have at his disposal. And so that may be utilized for those most serious complaints. With regards to suspension, as part of a complaint, the CEO can interim suspend a member if he believes on reasonable and probable grounds that a registrant's conduct exposes or is likely to expose the public to risk of harm, and urgent intervention is needed. So an interim suspension could be remain in place until that complaint is investigated, until it's disposed of, or referred to discipline. So again, HSCPOA's primary focus and mandate is public protection. So I'll just close with a few points, Miranda, just kind of summarize some of the most important, I think, takeaways for individuals on the call, PSWs, to really understand. So there is also a clause in the complaints regulation that protects registrants from complaints that are made in bad faith or revenge, complaints that are frivolous. So in the complaints regulation, they allow the CEO to take no action and dismiss those complaints without affecting the registrant. So that's important to understand. Again, registrants always receive a copy of the complaint that we receive about them. There will never be any decisions from HSCPOA or HSCPOA CEO without first notifying the registrant. Registrants can also choose to have a legal representative or anyone they choose, a union representative, represent them on their behalf. Once we receive their consent, we would only liaise with that individual. And HSCPOA takes no pleasure in removing a registrant's ability to provide health and supportive care services. So again, that will only be the situation where there's a serious risk of harm, as I mentioned, for things like abuse, various forms of abuse. Remediation will be the focus whenever appropriate. And as I mentioned, most registrants can continue to provide health and supportive care services. Just because a complaint is received, that does not affect their ability to continue to provide those services. And there will be an open dialogue with registrants and HSCPOA to ensure that they understand the process. So whether that's, an additional email, a phone call, for several complaints we've had so far, I've spoken to registrants on the phone, explain the process step by step, followed up with an email, reference FAQs on our websites. So we're here to engage and help, make sure that individuals understand the process. What we can't do is advise anyone what to say or what not to say or do. Because again, our mandate is public protection. So we're here to oversee a fair and transparent process and to make sure that everyone can participate fully and fairly in the process. So I hope that kind of clarifies a few things and lays it out more clearly. And we have extensive FAQs on our website, so I highly recommend that you review those. There was a lot of thought and effort put into the creation of those frequently asked questions. So please visit those for the most current and up-to-date information about the complaints process.
Yeah,
And if I could,
go
Daniel, if you could just describe in plain language what actually is displayed on the public register in regards to complaints, because I know that that's also a sensitive point, and I know that you have and share the accuracy of what goes on and what doesn't. And I'd like you to summarize that if you wouldn't mind, please.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point, Trevor. So the Register Regulation under the HSCPOA Act outlines what goes on the register. So this is very much similar to the College of Nurses and what goes on their website. So it's a summary of the complaint, not any specific details. So it would be a complaint was received on X date concerning these code of ethics violations. And that's only for any written warnings, any orders for education or training, interim suspension, or referrals to discipline. So anything that's disposed of as a take no action, remediate, provide a letter of advice, those do not appear in the public register. Again, that's in line with all of those 28 regulated health professions, their college. It's very similar. So again, anything take no action, advice, guidance does not show. Anything above education, a warning, referral goes on the public register, and it's a summary of the concerns.
Thanks for that. I think it's helpful for people to understand because based on the risk-based framework of the actual complaint and the responding action that we take, there's an instance where the situation for a letter of advisement or such won't appear on the public register, and then you have the corrective action that's provided to the PSW, which they can participate and understand, the basis of why and how to possibly alter behaviors going forward. Again, all with that focus on that public protection and just advancing also the roles of PSWs everywhere as we continue to grow, learn, and evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I can just point out something for the PSWs that are watching, in any regulatory structure anywhere in the world, Trevor and Daniel and their team at HSCPOA, they just don't have a free-for-all to do whatever they want to do. They can't be like, I don't like this PSW, so I'm going to just get rid of their license. They have to follow legislation. They have to follow procedure. They have to follow all these sorts of things. It's not just a willy-nilly conversation. It's like the association. There's a board of directors. They also have a board of directors, and they also have a PSW advisory committee, which I'm going to ask Trevor this next question then. Yeah. Trevor, there's a lot of conversation around the fact that, number one, you're not a PSW. And you're the CEO of HSCPOA. And also number two, that there's a concern that their voices and the perspective from the personal support worker are not being represented. And they want to make sure that it's being represented and considered, especially, in the governance and the oversight and the decision-making process. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Sure, happy to. So again, as Daniel's pointed out, this isn't a decision that HSCPOA has chosen to create with the formation of our governance strategy. It's embedded within the legislation, and I can only interpret what I know from what the legislation speaks to. And that is outside of the other regulatory health colleges in which there is representation of the registrant population on the actual board of governance, our legislation that's empowering us to act has a skills-based board of directors that oversees the operations of HSCPOA. And those skills-based individuals are represented by both ministry-appointed individuals and also by elected individuals that forms the board of directors that governs the organization. So you're absolutely correct. There is not a PSW that sits on our board. In fact, a board member is precluded from being a board member if they are a member of the profession to which is under the regulation. However, we have a PSW advisory committee that is there to form and amplify the voice of PSWs into the actions, direction, and operation of how HSCPOA functions. It is a representation of PSWs from long-term care, retirement, hospital, home care, educators, and professional associations and union representation as well that helps to advise how HSCPOA's CEO operates and how they report into the board of directors on their actions. So major changes or shifts in how HSCPOA operates. Our first stop on that journey is with the PSW Advisory Committee to ensure that we've got the correct impression of how these things function. You've also heard Daniel speak in the instance of a complaint. We may look to that PSW Advisory Committee to provide some assistance from remedial behavior for PSWs so that they can have more of a peered level of support and encouragement as they work to remedy whatever the instance that was brought forward as a concern has been investigated. So that group, it's not entirely active right now because, quite frankly, we haven't had a lot of shift in the operational design of HSCPOA going forward. We're actually focusing predominantly on the growth of our registrant population and not necessarily on the shifts and changes of our operations. So for now, our focus is on that growth. But the PSW Advisory Committee is an extremely important part of the cultural evolution of how HSCPOA is going to grow and evolve.
Which I love to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because PSWs need to have a say in what PSWs and, give that advice because like I always say to everyone is, I mean, you, Trevor, and I know Daniel, you guys have an impeccable kind of view of personal support workers and expertise because it's your guys' main core job. But PSWs always feel like if you're not a PSW, you don't understand what it is to be a PSW, and that for the most part is true. But when it's your full-time gig and you have to know so that you do your job correctly, then you definitely are experts in it. And just my members and PSWs watching, we have lots of conversations as well at HSCPOA. They're extremely transparent and open and do ask questions if there are questions to be asked. And I think that's a really positive thing because you learn something new every single day. And that's what I always believe. So I'm loving where this conversation is going, but I also want to put out to PSWs that are watching, and there was a question here that someone said, they're saying there's no representation in review or competency or disciplinary process, and we're going to get to that. But I think what they're missing here is that if there's a complaint, and tell me if I'm wrong here, and I'm just going to lay it out for them. But if there's a complaint and the complaint comes into HSCPOA and that's a registered HSCPOA, registrant, you guys contact the registrant and the complaint person. The registrant has 30 days in order to provide proof, documentation, etc., back to the HSCPOA for the review process. And there's an entire, and I think they need to understand that there's an entire appeal process, which we will get into in a second, or review process that the PSWs can ask for. But when the PSW is being represented, they can ask for their union to represent them. Let's just put that out there straight away. The union is not being cut out of this process, PSWs, okay? They're not at all. They can be there to represent you in this process. Same with OPSWA members. We can be there to represent you in this process. You can have whomever you want represent you in this process. No one's being cut out of anything here. So then to get down to the review and appeal decisions, how are they made regarding their registration or their plans to establish a formal appeal process, which I think there probably would be comparable to those available in other regulatory, health professional colleges. Because like you said, Daniel, earlier, all we keep seeing is, why are we not set up like the CNO? Why are we not set up like the CNO? And I kind of want you guys to talk about that a bit because there is a difference between PSW and the nurse and the college versus HSCPOA. So if you guys don't mind, sorry, big question, go for it.
That's okay, and I'm glad to see you were listening, and maybe I was clear, so that's good. You hit on some of the main points. So thank you, Miranda. So complaints decisions are not to HSCPOA are not subject to HPAR review. That's Health Professions Appeal and Review Board, like those at the health regulatory colleges against CNO, physios, massage therapists, etc. But as I noted earlier, we have a comprehensive, fair, and transparent complaints process in place. And again, the registrant and the complainant, who's the person who submitted the complaint, will be involved in the process, right? So that doesn't negate the appeal, but they're going to be actively involved in the process before any decisions are made by HSCPOA CEO, excuse me. So with that said, although the complaints decisions themselves are final, they're not appealable. Any party can apply to the Ontario Divisional Court for judicial review of the CEO's decision if they disagree with it. I also want to touch on revocation. So I know there's some words out there, some mentioning with regards to revocation. So HSCPOA CEO doesn't revoke registrant certificate of registrations as part of the complaints process. Registration is a different scenario. And as we stated, we expect the vast majority of complaints will have an outcome that doesn't actually affect the registrant or have some kind of disciplinary action. However, for those that do go to discipline, one of their outcomes is suspending, revoking, or applying terms, conditions, or limitations on that registrant. However, those decisions are appealable to HSCPOA's appeals committee. So that is something that is distinct and different from the RHPA colleges. So they do not have the ability to apply for an appeal to an appeals committee for discipline decisions like HSCPOA does. They have to go through the divisional court route. So that's something that is different and appealing, I think, for HSCPOA registrants. So again, the last thing I want to touch on and really drive home is, we don't know what's coming. There's no guarantees. But again, we expect, most registrants will not be involved in the complaints process, won't be involved in the discipline process. We don't know what tomorrow brings, but I highly doubt that to be the case. And for those that do come in, again, they will be resolved through some kind of remediation or guidance as much as, as possible and appropriate considering the concerns. I also just want to provide some reassurance to all the PSWs that our response will be measured and appropriate to the concerns outlined in the complaint. It's not a blanket approach. We're professionals ourselves, and we go through a very strict process, again, according to what's in the regulation and the legislation, and following due process, right? So giving all individuals an opportunity to participate and get the facts so that an informed decision can be made. And that includes involving everyone, both the complainant and the registrant in the entire process. So just to reiterate again, complaints decisions not appealable, but comply to divisional courts. And for any matters that are referred to discipline, we have an appeals committee. So any disagreements with the decisions of the discipline committee can be appealed to the appeals committee, which is something unique to HSCPOA.
And that's really good to know. No, I appreciate that. Thank you, Daniel. I think, like someone came back here and they said, so they wanted to revise their question, was PSWs only on advisory committee, not when review complaint. And I'm going to say that that's not true, because you guys just said, and maybe Tara didn't see it on the chat here on TikTok, but you guys will go to the advisory committee about a situation with a PSW if you require additional kind of information or PSW minds on the complaint. Is that correct to say?
No. So just to clarify, okay. So no, for regards to an outcome, right? So if there's a situation where it feels more beneficial for that PSW, that registrant to meet a peer, as Trevor has referenced them, I like that word, then we may engage someone from the PSW advisory committee to help us engage with that PSW, understand what happened, what went wrong, how can they improve themselves going forward, possibly write a paragraph to reflect on the situation. I think those situations are most effective when it comes from a peer. So the PSW advisory committee isn't involved from adjudicating or deciding the outcomes of complaints, but very much on the back end with regards to education and reflection. Mm-hmm.
I'll agree with that. Sorry, I was just going to say, I agree with everything that Daniel just answered to your question clearly, but I would just add this, that in the process of arriving at a decision, HSCPOA will take into account all available and any resource information that is impactful towards making that decision. So nothing is excluded, and we may seek to get more clarity on the circumstances of a situation from a PSW standards of care practice approach, which helps us formulate what a decision would actually result in. So the clarity is we don't our first stop there isn't to the PSW advisory committee, but our stop is to make sure that we are getting as much of the impactful information surrounding the situation that we can, because that's the only way that we'll be delivering the best decision we can.
No, and
And
thank you
that's
for
speaking to
clarifying that. Yeah.
Miranda, just also to clarify a few things. So also during the investigation, right, could be speaking to other PSWs, right? So they register and complain, provide with this information. We would speak to those PSWs. Could be a supervisor, a colleague, a mentor, anyone else who has information. And also to Trevor's point, getting the employer policies, right, with regards to what's expected of that PSW. So yeah, there's indirect involvement from PSWs all around. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not just
No.
see the complaint, make a decision, and done. It's very much a back and
Oh, you
forth.
mean you guys are just going to go for dinner and make the decision over dinner, Daniel?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
No. Okay.
No,
No.
that wouldn't be appropriate.
No, I know. And I'm speaking their language right now, right?
Yeah,
So it's PSWs, just know that the PSW is not alone throughout the entire process.
No.
And I think we've hit on a lot of really good notes here with this podcast. And I just wanted to point out to the PSWs again that you have to remember that HSCPOA is not here to attack the personal support worker. They are here to set the standards and set the code of ethics and conduct that you behave as a personal support worker. And at the end of the day, it's about the public safety. And when we're talking about public, we're talking about our patients, our residents, and our clients, who many of us are here because of these individuals, the most vulnerable. And many of us have been put in situations where we've witnessed abuse. We have witnessed these bad things happening. And I can't tell you guys how many times I've heard at the association over the years of, I wish there was some way to get this person out of the PSW field because they are, just terrible and they shouldn't be working in the field. And PSWs, this is the way. Mm-hmm. So in situations where we've seen in the news about, unfortunately, sexual assault, abuse, neglect, PSWs becoming POAs, this is going to help the people we care for, that we pour half our heart into every single day, PSWs. So think of it as a partner in change as opposed to an opponent in change. And this is also recognizing the very hard work that you guys do every single day. This was put in place to recognize that and to back the good and fantastic personal support workers. So I just wanted to make that clear to everyone that was on here. But I think we got a lot of really good information out of you guys today. Thanks for bearing with me and all these questions that we had. Is there anything that you guys want to add before we're done?
I would love to add something. I started off your podcast by valuing the PSW work that they do every day. And the importance of the decisions that come out of a complaints review is equally the same focus, is making sure that we are valuing the work that you do every day and finding ways to help support the growth and progression. One of the byproducts of the work we're going to do is going to be some extremely valuable information about your sector and the influence that your sector provides, which allows organizations, possibly like OPSWA or others, to really have good data to work with as they advocate and they highlight the importance of PSW work in our healthcare system. And I have one other point I'm just going to add in, and it's really a caution. And I say this because we've seen this happening. When you're applying to become a registrant, please make sure that you give us all of the accurate information that you have. Make sure that it's accurate, make sure that it's authentic, and that it's accurate to put in. We have seen information coming in, unfortunately, that isn't, and that can have some serious ramifications for a registrant decision process. So I'm not trying to say that with any kind of an intention of a scare tactic. It really is just saying, please just make sure it's the accurate information that you're submitting, because that's what you should be submitting, and that's what we're expecting you to be submitting. And we just want to give you that caution. We do review every single registrant application very, very carefully to ensure the authenticity and the accuracy of the information. So I just want you to work with us in an honest and forthright manner, and we're going to be doing the exact same approach in response with you. So this is a together moment to get through a change.
Exactly. And that's what it is, Trevor, right? Like this is a change in the personal support worker field. This is not a bad change, PSWs. Yes, I will bring them back on about the 2014 thing at some point. We are not going to address that right now, but we wanted to address the disciplinary and the committees and all that stuff. And so you guys had a better understanding to, like I said, to kind of shut down these falsehoods, because all they do is hurt you guys. And I don't want you guys to have to take on any more falsehoods and just know truly what is going on. Like Trevor just said, to echo you, Trevor, we are partners in this. This is a health systems partnership between the association and HSCPOA, but HSCPOA is very much partnered with the PSWs of this province to get them through this process, efficiently and without a lot of bumps. Although there's going to be mountains, but not a lot of bumps. So, I think overall this was great. I know we're probably gonna have a lot of questions and emails coming in, which you guys both know I will address and send to both of you, so you guys can address them directly. Daniel, do you have anything that you'd like to say? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can I just throw in one more quick plug, if you don't mind?
Please. Yes.
So yeah, just to reiterate again, please look at our website. Again, I put a lot of thought out into those FAQs on our website to make it as transparent as possible, because I get it. I totally understand this is intimidating. This is new for PSW, so I wanted it to be out there, open and easy to digest. With that said, I eat, breathe, and sleep this material. So if anything is unclear, and I've mentioned at the presentation, reach out, complaints@hscpoa.com, and I'd be happy to explain or elaborate or provide more clarification as needed.
Okay, great. Because you know what we'll do is when this podcast is over, we will be posting that FAQ page on our website along with Daniel's email. So you guys can actually just reach out to him directly if you have any concerns or questions regarding HSCPOA. Trevor, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just say if there's a segment of your membership that feel that their voices aren't being heard, or that we're not getting good, clear, transparent information exchange, reach out to us and we will come out and meet. We will meet virtually. We'll do whatever we can to really help support the understanding and to dispel some of the misinterpretations that we see and we hear that are out there. And we're trying to find and support the best way possible for PSWs to be established as a recognized and important part of our healthcare framework. And this is a big part of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And nothing happens overnight, right, guys? Everything takes forever and a day, especially with government. So we're going to stay strong, keep smiling, and hopefully enjoy the sun. But I want to thank you both for coming onto this podcast. I know it was a last minute thing I threw at you guys. I really, really appreciate it. Like I said before, for any of you guys who have questions, concerns, we're going to be posting this on our pages so you guys know who to reach out to, and you guys can have a look at their website so you can dispel all of the falsehoods that are going on around Ontario right now about the regulation of PSWs. Remember, if you're not registered yet with HSCPOA, make sure to get on it. And if you're not registered with OPSWA, make sure to get on it. So thanks very much, guys, for joining me yet again on another PSW podcast. Don't worry, PSWs, I'll be back again next Friday with yet another PSW podcast. We're starting these back up again. But thanks very much, guys, and have a great weekend. And with that,
Always
I'm going
a
to say,
pleasure. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, Miranda, for the opportunity.
Thanks, guys.